In this video, I'm gonna be trying $100 ramen, but in order to find out if it's worth the money, we're gonna have to try every single ramen shop in all of Hollywood, home to some of the greatest ramen shops in all of America. And some of the ramen shops even rival Japan. So with that, let's get started. So this place is called Jinya Ramen, where you get to build your own ramen, almost like you build a Subway sandwich.
Pretty garlicky, because I added some black garlic oil on top of extra garlic, less crispy garlic, because I love garlic. Overall, it's a pretty solid ramen. The fact is I got to build and customize it exactly how I like. This is really hyping me up for the $100 ramen later in this video. So with that, let's go on to the next place.
Next up is Shin Ramen. They have some really crazy tsukemen using all kinds of fancy ingredients that's just gonna knock your socks off.
Look at this. They literally roast a marshmallow and put it into the broth. All right, let's go ahead and just dip it in here. Wow, creamy ramen. Very subtle hint of sweetness. Oh my gosh, this pork belly is so soft. Everything I love rolled into one.
So next up is Totoyama Sushi and Ramen, and this place is a little bit hole in the wall.
It's not bad, it's not amazing. It's just overall just a solid like tonkatsu ramen. Has like a nice creamy taste, got a little bit spicy, which is adding a bit more flavor to it. It's just like a good average ramen.
This is every single instant ramen I can find from Cup Noodle here in America. So while we're on the topic of ramen, let's go and see which one's the best. Since there's gonna be so much ramen, let's just boil a big pot of hot water. Next up, we're gonna prepare the ramen and open up all the boxes. And now that the water's done boiling, we're gonna pour it into the ramen. Now, while the ramen is cooking for a few minutes, we're gonna jump to the next restaurant. Next up is Ishin Ramen, and this place has some really good dandan man, which is like the original ramen and how I like to gauge whether a place has good ramen or not.
Oh my gosh, look at that. It's just very oily, very umami. There's just a very subtle spiciness. This is really bomb. If you're ever in Hollywood, I definitely recommend trying out Ishin Ramen.
Next up is Kino Sushi and Ramen, which is right in the center of Hollywood Boulevard. And this place has a really great vibe to it, but the question is the ramen any good?
And here I got the black garlic oil ramen, and we got some chashu right here. It's a little thin and feels a little dry. It's not exactly the softest chashu I've ever had. The broth is not too bad. I actually like this. Honestly, really, aside from like the pork chashu being a little dry, like this place is pretty solid.
Next up is Fukuro Ramen on Hollywood Boulevard, and I love this place because it has so much chashu.
They call this the heart attack ramen, and you can quickly see why. I am curious if it's gonna taste just as good as it looks. I'm vibing with the chashu. I like that seared. It's just a tonkatsu broth, a little bit watered down, I would say. Really, the key point here is just the amount of meat in one biteful. Because it's thin, it's getting that crispiness to the pork that I think is absolutely amazing. I will say with this much meat, this is really hyping me up for what the $100 ramen is gonna taste like. I am so excited about that.
You see this cream cheese pie? This pie represents one of my videos. This is what happens when you don't like one of my videos. Make sure you like this video. Before we get to the $100 ramen, there's one more place we need to stop by, which is Kota Ramen, because they claim to be the best ramen in all of LA and Hollywood.
Creamy broth, and look at that chashu. Not gonna lie, I'm actually a little impressed with this. And normally I like thicker noodles as opposed to thinner noodles, but here it actually works pretty well. It's very high quality pork. Overall, Kota Ramen, I'm pretty impressed with this. If you want like a really milky ramen broth, this is there.
Now that the ramen are finished, I'm gonna try every single instant ramen you can find in America. We got original, teriyaki beef stir fry, the chicken flavor, sweet chili stir fry, beef flavor, hot garlic chicken, seafood, Korean barbecue, shrimp flavor, and we have curry. First up is the original. So the original is just gonna be an assortment of shrimps, beef, egg. The original is the original. It tastes great, pretty solid, has a mix of flavors. Clearly, my bird at least loves it. Next up is the teriyaki stir fry. Fry noodle and its teriyaki flavor. Some carrots and vegetables, maybe a piece of beef. Pretty much tastes exactly as you think, it's just teriyaki noodles. Next up is the chicken flavor. If you grew up on instant noodles in college, you probably had the chicken flavor. Yeah, chicken flavor pretty much tastes like childhood, but I would definitely say it's the weakest flavor so far. Next up is the sweet chili stir fry. The spiciness is very little. I'm not really feeling anything at all, but there's definitely a lot lot of sweetness to it. It's actually a little too sweet for my taste. Next up is probably the second most common flavor in America, which is the beef flavor. I'm definitely noticing the ones in America have a much lighter broth, as just the overall flavor is not as strong and impactful as the imports. Next up is the stir-fry hot garlic chicken. I have high hopes for this one. Pretty much picture the chicken ramen, but with a way stronger chicken flavor and it's spicy. So far, I really like this one. Okay, next up is the seafood flavor. It's seafood flavor, just like exactly what you would think is like the generic seafood like seasoning flavor. Okay, next up is the Korean barbecue stir fry. I'm really stoked about this one. It's just like all that marinated beef right here, all in a cup of noodle. That is absolutely awesome. Next up is the third most popular flavor, which is the shrimp flavor. I'm really disappointed with the American versions of all these cup of noodles because man, the flavors are so weak. Okay, and last up is the curry ramen. Ah, this is so good. It's just curry ramen, but instant noodle. But overall, what you can take away with this is stop buying the garbage American ones and get the imports, because overall, all of the imports have been amazing. But my favorite is probably gonna be the curry. And with that, let's move on to the next restaurant. Now, after an entire day of eating every single ramen shop in Hollywood, here I am in Iki Ramen.
So now we have A5 tartar right here from the chef. Look at this thing. Let's see how this tastes, and then we'll get straight to the $100 ramen. It's just an umami explosion. That is absolutely insane.
And before me is the glorious $100 ramen.
This is A5 Wagyu beef covered in gold. This thing is just loaded with top grade, high level Wagyu beef. There's some truffle and even 24 karat gold all over this ramen. This thing looks so crazy, it actually feels like a crime to start digging into this. Oh my God. Words cannot describe how insane this is. It is like melting in my mouth. Truffles just adding such a nice flavor on top of it all. This is the best ramen I've ever had, and this is going to be the best ramen you'll ever find in Hollywood and LA. This is absolutely insane. Now I'm gonna have my wife try this.
That is so soft. Oh, it's a buttery explosion. It is beautiful. I'm eating it all now.
And now for dessert, we have some shiokoji ice cream, which basically is a salt ice cream with like a fermented yeast. Oh my gosh. It's like a caramel bread, but turned into ice cream is like the best way to describe the flavor. I have never had ice cream like this before in my life.
So the burning conclusion of the question, is $100 ramen worth it? Yes. Like and subscribe. Bye.